Okay. No.
What's her last name? Michaela. Michaela?
Mhm.
No last name?
Hello. How's everyone doing? We're just going to give it a few minutes. So if somebody, I think I can drop the link to the slides um, into the chat. A reminder, if you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A. It is much easier for anyone who is assisting from the rest of the COS team to answer questions in the Q&A, and that also keeps those questions and answers so that we can send them out with a follow-up email. So really appreciate using the Q&A for questions. However, if you do in the meantime want to use the chat to just show where you're from, just post post in the chat where you're coming from or um, where you're at. And I see my colleague Crystal has just put the slides into the chat. So thank you, Crystal, for her assistance with that. Um, give it another like 2 minutes. No, Ireland. Nice. Indiana. Oh, y'all just made the college football playoffs, huh? Michigan. So, welcome to the OSF 101. Oh, Afghanistan. James Madison. I went there. Y'all also made the college football playoffs. Um, so I'm going to go ahead to just as we get started, I know, go Dukes. Our COS event code of conduct, just as a check the box, just, no intimidating, harassing, demeaning, bullying. Just don't be disruptive of this webinar, please. We will boot you out of it. We don't want to have to do that. Just, be respectful of everyone who's participating in the webinar, including any speakers and other COS employees or staff that are here assisting me and others that are just helping with answering the Q&A. Oh crap, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing slides. I haven't done one of these in a while, so please bear with me. It's been at least a few months since I've given a 101. As I said, the COS event code of conduct, just, be respectful of everybody who's participating in the webinar, and make sure that, you're respectful of all of the COS employees that are here too. Um, so moving on. Okay. So this is the agenda. We'll do a brief intro into open scholarship, but since this is our 101 webinars tend to be more hands-on, it'll be a little bit more demo stuff for me. So we'll do a brief introduction to open scholarship, information about your account and profile on the OSF, discovering content, basically OSF search or searching on the OSF, research planning, otherwise known as registrations and pre-registrations. Then, continuing into some study management and collaboration. Those are projects on the OSF. Research sharing, so these can be preprints that are hosted on the OSF, and then making sure that you're connecting resources across the OSF, relationships, PIDs, ROARs, ORCIDs, DOIs, all of the things that are really important that you take out of using the OSF. And just a reminder there, please ask questions in the QA. It's really easy. It's much easier for our team to be able to assist you with answering them if they're in the Q&A as opposed to in the chat. Okay. So some of the open scholarship practices, this is not an exhaustive. Oh, am I still not sharing slides? Um, Am I sharing slides? Somebody? Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, it's been a little while. It seems that I'm sharing. These are not an exhaustive list of all of the practices related to open scholarship. These are some of the ones that you can do on the OSF. So what we do have is data or research planning, otherwise known as, the sharing of data management plans, registrations, pre-registrations, then the conducting your work. So basically having an OSF project where you can collaborate with others, store and share data, code, analysis, all of the things that are really important to the research that you're doing, then making those things accessible and transparent and giving them, persistent identifiers. Um, and then moving on to like the reporting and publishing and discussing, we have preprint providers that we host on the OSF that you can use for sharing your scholarly articles or scholarly communications prior to publication, because as everyone knows, publication can take a very long time sometimes. So making sure that, if you're able to, you can share any of your findings as soon as you're able to, and then kind of get a jump on giving that out for, others to view and comment on, and work together to like maybe enhance or make better. So like I said, this is not an exhaustive list of everything that can be done. Getting started doing open scholarship or open scholarship practices, you can start small. You don't have to jump all in. Um, pick one practice that, you'd like to learn more about and start there. That could be setting up a research plan or pre-registration or registration. And that might be the one thing you do to start. It could be just creating an OSF project and collaborating there in order to potentially share your data, code, all of that at a later date, preferably earlier. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Other ways to get started easier, look at the research department at your institution. The librarians at your institution are also really good resources for how to do open science. Funders also have more requirements now for sharing of data and code. Um, NIH and PubMed was very early on in the you must share any type of output from funded research, but there are a lot of other funders that have similar requirements that are coming into play. There are other open science platforms. The OSF is not the only open science or open scholarship platform. There's also a lot of other NIH Gray journalist repositories, Harvard Dataverse, Zenodo, Figshare. All of those also have technology that can support sharing the work that you're doing openly and transparently for others to use. um, Join or build a community. It is so much easier to do this with other people, which is why I usually encourage reaching out to librarians or um, your research office. They may know of others that are using and doing these things with similar funders to enhance, the sharing of the data and the code and all of the research that you're doing. It's a lot of work. You want to share it and try to, maximize the reuse of it as well as getting credit for how much work you're doing. Um, so those are all ways you can kind of try to maximize that. Further discussion about policies and how to do those types of open scholarship practices. If you email into support, we will probably direct you to external resources. We don't have a lot of policy guidance at this time. Most of the support stuff for OSF is very technically related or technical related, which is what I'm going to really go into today. So this is just an introduction to open scholarship practices and the ones that we actually enable you to do on the OSF. Okay. So what is the Open Science Platform, or the OSF as I keep referring to it? Um, it's a free open source online research platform that allows you to do all of these things without having to, all you have to do is create an account. You don't have to pay for anything. And once you create an account, you can, search and discover other content on the OSF. You can create and develop, your own research plans on the OSF. You can share and collaborate with others by creating a project. You can, store the data, analyze, or you can store the data analysis. You can link to your code. If it's in GitHub or GitLab, we have links to that. Um, doing your interpretation and writing reports. You can all share all of that. I think one of my colleague who usually gives this, his favorite um, example of like what an OSF project allows you to do is it allows you in real time to like link to external storage. So you're not sending emails back and forth about like this is the final preprint version. You can share that in an OSF project, get access to, say you're working with somebody who's at Harvard and they use Harvard Dataverse as their uh, repository of choice, and you're working at, UVA and say you're using Google Drive. So you can share between various repositories or where you're storing your information or data or, article drafts, so you're not relying on email to send them back and forth, but you can share them within an OSF project to kind of minimize some of the weirdness that can happen when you're sending stuff in emails. Getting started on setting up your account. I already have one, so I'm not going to be able to go through most of this, but we do have a help guide. Oh, wait, where did it go? I went the wrong way. I'll just go here because I know where it is. So if you need to, in the PDFs, it does take you straight to your profile and account where you can see our help guide on settings, getting started with using your email, um, setting how to make your OSF profile. I have already created my account. I am not gonna, so I'll just sign in. When you go to sign in, you can sign in with an ORCID. If your institution is an institutional member, you can sign in via your institution. If you want to see if your institution is a member, you can go here and institutions. And I know for a fact James Madison is an institutional member, so you can always log in via your institution, and it's a single sign-on. So the same login information you use for your James Madison, you can use to sign into the OSF. And then any of the work that you do logged in through your institution will have your institutional affiliation associated with it. I am not. I no longer have my James Madison email, so I'll just be signing in with my Center for Open Science. I could also sign in through my ORCID, but this is just how I have my settings saved. So this is my dashboard, and right here is my profile. And so you could see in your profile that you have, like I have my ORCID linked, I have my employment, my education, and then all of the content I have on the OSF is displayed on my profile. So this is how our profiles look to others as well. Okay, so moving on from account creation to, yeah, creating your account. Like I said, there's a link down here to the help guide in the file, in the slides that were shared earlier. This is my colleague's profile. That's why I showed you mine. And then now moving on to discovering content on the OSF or searching the OSF. There's a whole video here linked in the slides. I'll go here to signed in and go to search OSF. And you could see all of the content, and there are over 10,000 results because we have a lot of content on the OSF. So I'm going to search just because I know it's there. I changed my search terms. So I'm searching for reproducibility. And the really nice thing is when you do a search, you can grab the URL. I'm just going to open an incognito window and I could share that with anybody else. And they will, oh, they got a lot more. Hold on. Oh, they do this. I think because I changed it. Yeah, because I changed it mid search. So 5305 to 5305. So when you share your URL, you get the same results. So if you do a search on the OSF, you can use that search. Yeah, Crystal shared the article for the account and security. Um, we also have an article on, I think on search. So yeah, so putting in your keywords, then you can search for metadata. So we'll do this one, biology. Okay. And let's see. Okay. And so let's say you're interested in biology and registrations that are associated with biology. You can then get all of these methods of refining those. You can look at various registration templates, pre-registration, open-ended registration. You could see another nice thing about registrations I'll get into later is that you can link outputs from a registration or a research plan to the initial research plan. And you can then search by people that have included that, which might be it's resource type. I was looking for. So this one, data from sex-specific relationships between maternal and neonate cortisol. They have paper, code, and data. So it's a really nice thing to be able to search and find because they're obviously being fairly, they're doing a lot of open scholarship practices. Okay. And then, um, so then as I just showed with a search for registrations and registration outputs, we're going to talk about research planning, which is our way of describing registrations and pre-registrations. There's a whole video linked in the slides. There's also help guides on that as well. If you go to, yeah. So this is an overview of all of the things you can do with registrations and pre-registrations on the OSF. Once again, yeah, please use the Q&A function for questions and we can send out those questions and answers later. So one of the things we always say is, your research is a story, right? And if you're just telling your story with your paper at the end, are you really giving the full results of your effort? So do people understand? I think our favorite example is Romeo and Juliet. It's like if you just say everybody dies at the end, like, do you know the full story of Romeo and Juliet? Not really. So part of this desire to share the full story, because you're putting a lot of time into your research, is to start off with a registration plan or a research plan or registration or pre-registration, depending upon your discipline. And that allows you to set up a plan for how you're going to conduct your research and then what you plan to do with it in the end. So registrations and pre-registrations is basically a design for how you're going to conduct, report, publish, and then what you're going to do with any data. So that could include ethics approvals, it can include data handling, how you're going to do all of those things. And then, any type of data management plan can be included in that. All of those are pieces of your research plan and can be included in your registration or pre-registration. Yeah, what is a pre-registration? So it's a pre-registration specifically is a time-stamped version of your research plan created and submitted to a public registry before your study is conducted. OSF has a registry itself, but there are many other registries out there. Prospero, clinicaltrials.gov is also a registry. Um, this is basically the outline of your research story, a formal, transparent story of what your research is going to do, and that keeps you, or a study management plan. This keeps you from being accused of any type of harking or p-hacking or what as you move on, like you're setting your hypothesis. I think as my colleague likes to say, you're carving your shot. You're like, this is what I'm going to do. These are the results I'm looking for. And you're calling your shot. Um, and then when you come back later, you can reference, hey, this is the hypothesis I had at the beginning. Look at what my study found. It actually verified or did not verify my hypothesis. And you have that timestamp on your hypothesis or your research plan before you get started. Um, Pre-registrations are started usually prior to any type of data collection. Um, Registrations can be done at any point in time. There are templates associated with both. Both of these on the OSF can be embargoed up to 4 years. Um, and there are some journals that require registrations. And we highly recommend if you think you're going to be submitting to a journal that you embargo your registration, because then if it's embargoed, you can create anonymized view-only links to share your registration with others, which is important a lot of times for peer review when you're submitting content to a journal, especially if your journal requires a registration or pre-registration. Um, if you choose not to embargo and you want to make your registration public right away, you can then also during your registration, because we understand that sometimes research plans changed as you're moving through your research, you can create an update for your registration, and then you can incorporate any changes like you're working through. You had intended to get 1,000 participants in your study, but you only got 500 and then decided that that was enough for what you needed to do. You can make an update to your registration to be very transparent about why changes were made to your research plan. So now we're moving on to after, or potentially, you've created your study plan, your research plan for how you're going to conduct that, how then you can collaborate and share. Um, so, gosh, I'll go ahead and my OSF, my projects. I have lots of projects on the OSF, but I can create a new one. So one of the things when you're creating a new project is you have the ability to choose a storage location. We also have information about this in our project's help guides. Our storage locations are based upon data management and data storage requirements by various countries. So Australia, Canada, and the US all have various data storage requirements for certain funders. Germany is our storage location of choice for being compatible with European Union type data storage and management requirements. So I can be in the US, which I am, and choose Germany as my data storage, my preferred storage location. And then just for fun, I'm going to create a research project. You can put in a description. There are templates available. And I can do a template of one of my own projects or other public projects. But I'm just going to create one and I can go to that project. So all projects are initially private. In order to make it public, you just toggle the button. and then it tells you right away that you'll be making this project public. You also have the ability at any time when you've created a OSF project to make it private again. So, and then you can change the title name. You can so you can edit all of the things associated with your project other than the date created. That is a timestamp. Your affiliated institution, like I said, if you sign on with an institution that's an institutional member, your affiliation will automatically show up. You can remove it if you're doing work that is not associated with your institution. You can also add funding, resource information, more metadata, tags. You can create a DOI for your project. You can license your project if you're making it public for what our viewers are able to do with any of the content in your project. Um, so OSF projects basically allow you to share at all times the latest version of the work that you're doing, as opposed to having to wait until you're done with your research. Um, you can add a lot of extra information when you're doing a publication. You're usually limited to supplemental data by a very small amount or what you can share in your publication. But if you share an OSF project with your publication, you can share all of the supplemental data and everything that you wanted to include. All of your hard work can be shared with everybody when you're sharing a link to an OSF project in a publication or just sharing your OSF project. Um, I think one of my favorite examples of why projects are so good is that, you know, a lot of times, sometimes the data that you get may not be statistically significant. And if you can pool a bunch of data in similar areas, you can come to a statistically significant result. And so by sharing your data, others can find it and then potentially also utilize your data to create statistical significance by pooling data. And if you share your project and create a DOI for your project, you can then you would get the credit for contributing to those results because your data was included in those larger massed studies. Mhm. Um, so this is another example OSF project. Another thing that's nice about OSF projects is you can create from the overview page. You can link other projects. You can create components. It's a components, and you can also, if you are creating a component, you can have a different storage location for the component. And components are a really nice way to organize a project. So I have my research project. I'm going to make protocols as like one component so I can put all of my protocols for my research project into this one component. Um, I can create publications and have a separate publications component where all of the publications that I'm working on for my research project are all housed. And that would be a nice way to organize it. I can create a data component and share that and have all of my data or analysis in one component. So this is a really nice way to structure your research project so that you have the ability to easily get at the information you need when you come in, as opposed to hunting down files or folders on your computer. It's one place to just kind of come, a central location to collaborate with others and store all of the things associated with your research project. Ooh. So finally, I'm moving into research sharing our OSF preprints. That is one way to share the information out of once you finish your research plan. Um, I saw Ruth's, if you have your data stored elsewhere, yes, you can create it. So let's go here. I'm going to go to add-ons since we got to that question. So we have a bunch of storage integrations that you can link to in your OSF project so that you can connect all of the things. Just because I don't remember all of my login information right off the bat, I'm going to connect to Box. This is the easiest one I have. Um, and so, oh, I'm going to connect to Box. I'm going to authorize Box and yep. So then I am setting up my box. I'm granting access to it. So now any files I have in Box are connected to this OSF project. Anyone who is a contributor on this project, because I did make it private again, would also have access to the, and I have to go into here. Oh, wait, add-ons. I have to configure. So, no, did I still look up? So right now, I can connect. I'm just going to connect all my files because it's a private project and I'm the only person in it. But if you have folders in your box you can designate specific files to connect to. That's generally the best way to go. And then anybody who has access can see any of the files I have in my box folder. But like I said, I have folders in my box that I could have connected instead, but I know that I don't have a lot of stuff in my box account, at least the one associated with my COS account. So then you could connect all of those to your OSF project and share all of those files either with your collaborators if it's a private project or with the general public if you also want to be sharing that information. And this allows a really easy way to share content that's stored in many places without having to like give random people access to your box. You're doing that all through this central hub, which is a really nice way to be able to share that information without having to then put it in all these different places. Okay. So as I said, moving into the research sharing, linking the add-ons is one way, doing preprints is another way. So we'll move on to preprints. And then that kind of connects all of the things. So I'm going to go back to the OSF and I'm going to start a registration just to go give you an idea. The best way to start a registration is from my registration page. These are registrations I have. So if I want to add one, so there's two options when you're starting a registration. If you already have content that you want to, like you started an OSF project and you have content in that, like you have your protocol, your data management plan in your OSF project, you can start from an OSF project. And then at that point, it will ask you what project you want to start, you want to use. You can just select any of your OSF projects. You can search them. If you don't have data or any content that you want to put in your registration in an OSF project, you can also start from scratch. So you're just creating a registration. And I will let you know that when you create a registration from scratch, an OSF project will be created for you that will allow you down the road to upload your data or code or any preprints or any other information or files that you want to add to your registration. You add them to your project, and then you can come back and using those little badges that I showed you briefly, you can connect those to your registration, which is a really nice way to share all of the outputs from your research plan or your research study in one place. I'm going to just start an open-ended registration, but there are a whole bunch of different registration templates. Once again, if you go to the registrations, selecting a registration template, we have all of our templates listed here, along with previews of those as a Google Doc, and then examples of them on the OSF. So if you want to see what an OSF pre-registration looks like, you can go here, take you to. Yes, and so this is pre-registration, an OSF pre-registration. This is an example. You can see their hypothesis, their design plan, study design, all of the their sampling plan, all of the information they have. This is just one example. But we wanted to give examples of how people are actually using these templates to make it a little bit more easy, make it easier for you to understand how you can put in the same information. Okay. So I'll start a pre-registration, usually open-ended. So like I said, this will have information about your overall study, your design plan, sampling plan, what variables you want to use, analysis plan, and then any other information you think may be important. Let's say you're doing a qualitative study and there's a questionnaire. You can get to and when I skip these, I'll get a whole bunch of red exclamation marks because I haven't put in information. So it's yelling at me to tell me I haven't completed the template. Um, but I can always add. Um, okay. A hypothesis. So I can upload files here. And so I will grab. Oh gosh. Nope. Sorry. There's my documents. Oh. So like if you have methods and key measures as a PDF, you can share that here and stick that in. And then that's part of your design plan. Once you fill out all of the pieces of the template and get to the review section, you will then be able to register your your registration or submit your registration to be archived. Once it's archived, you'll get the ability to approve or reject it. Any admin contributors, which goes back to here. Sorry, Akil. So at this point, if I want to add a contributor, I can add. So I'm adding one of my colleagues. Because I know she's here. And then you can choose the permissions. And if you want more information about permissions, that is also available here. Understand contributor permissions. And this gives you a general overview of what permissions various or what various permissions mean that contributors or collaborators can do with the content that they're on. So I'm going to make Michaela an admin. She's able to then do all of the things. So that's an example of adding a contributor that is already has an OSF account. If I need to add a contributor that does not have an OSF account, that can also be easily done. I'm going to pick my husband because I know he doesn't have an OSF account because he's not allowed to create one because he is my example. So as you can see, I cannot find him, so I add him as an unregistered contributor. Oh, and then as his email will pop up because I use him all the time, and then I add him. And you can go in and change these permissions at any point. This is editable metadata. Um, Registration is not related to preprints. This is a piece of it. I just didn't do this while I was doing the registration. I didn't know how much time I had left. I'm sorry. So I can make his permissions whatever I want them to be. So that is the registration. I can go back to preprints after this. I'm sorry. Um, no. So this is how you create and start a registration. So I've started this registration. Now I go to my OSF, my registrations. Yeah. So this is the one I just created today. I had not titled it. But I can find it in my draft registrations. And then I can edit it at any point, and it saves automatically if I go to the next section. So license subjects are required. And so now that has saved. And if I go back to my registrations and my drafts, you'll see I have Testing 101 webinar. So you can always go back to your draft registrations and edit them and submit them. And the registered date will be the date that that draft was created. And then when you submit it, that will still be the date that you have as your registration created date. Once you've created your registration, and it's public, so I'll show you this one. So this is my public registration. It gets a DOI right here. Only public registrations get DOIs. This is very important to know. The full DOI is on the metadata page. So I can copy that here and then share that. And it'll take me right back to that registration. So that is a permanent identifier associated with my registration that associates with me. And then my other contributors on that. Okay. So, like I mentioned when I just showed my DOI, a really nice thing about the OSF is if you, like I showed you, or showed everyone earlier, I have my ORCID associated with my OSF account, which is really nice because then anything I create on the OSF that gets a DOI is also registered to my ORCID. And so it's verified through that. We have two different DOI services. We use Crossref for our preprints, our preprint providers. We use Crossref to create DOIs for any preprints. We use DataCite to create DOIs for projects and registrations. You will need to go into your ORCID and allow Crossref and DataCite, mostly DataCite, to then access your account to have everything fully smoothly connected. But it's a really nice way if you're creating your institution has a Aurora ID to tag your institution, your ORCID, and your DOI all together. And that's just very nice to like have a nice packaged way of just connecting all of those persistent identifiers across all of the things that you do. Okay. Still have a little more time. I can also show you how to do a preprint now. So I like to do everything from my OSF page. So I'll go to my preprints. I can add a preprint, and then I can choose all of these preprint providers that the OSF hosts. You're also welcome to create preprints on other services like Archive, BioArchive, all of those, and then we don't enable those to be linked directly yet, but you can always put them in your project wiki. I did not discuss project wikis. There's only so much time, so many things you can do on the OSF. But we do have a bunch of preprint providers that we host, such as MetaArchive, SciArchive, SocialArchive, Thesis Commons, where if you have a thesis from working on a degree of some form, a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, you can share your thesis here. It's a really nice way to, all this work that you spent a lot of time creating, you can, to have a thesis, you can share on Thesis Commons. It's another preprint or thesis provider that we have support on the OSF. So this is kind of a way to connect all of the things on the OSF. We have a final poll. Teresa, can you share that poll, please? The exit poll. Did it come up? Oh, there it goes. So if you have time, or any other questions, I didn't have the Q&A open. We can do that real quick.
So yeah, we have one in the QA if you want to answer that
I
live.
I hold on. Can you tell me what it is? I don't have Q&A.
Absolutely. The
Thank you.
question is, if you upload files within the project so everyone can access it, can you edit the file within OSF or do you have to download, work offline, then delete, and then re-upload?
It depends upon the file. If it's in actually no, you cannot anymore. We don't have you cannot check out files in the project. So you would have to upload it again. But there is a really nice function where if you do if you're editing the file, it will be a version history.
So let's look at an example. Let's say we have a Microsoft Excel. Let's look at the workflows, one between having it on your local machine and then also having it in OneDrive. How does that differ between the two?
I don't use OneDrive. Sorry, Mark. Why did you pick that one?
So, an example, I can answer this one. So, it
Okay.
depends on exactly where you and your team collaborate on, because I know some people work on their local machines. Sometimes they have a shared computer, sometimes they have a thumb drive. But if you have a local Excel, yes, you would have to edit it directly there and then re-upload it. If you have Excel within OneDrive, where it allows for that to be just kind of linked on in, you can edit directly within OneDrive and it'll automatically sync.
Oh, yeah, and then that you do not creating a project and adding contents, you do not need to register. No, I'm sorry. Um, that's just if you choose to create a registration, you want to share your research plan ahead of time. If you just want to create a project and collaborate with others and have a place to share your data, have a place to link your code, you do not need to create a registration or pre-registration. Um, so yeah, the any projects that you uploaded are open to everyone only if you make them public. And then, like was saying, when you were doing your licensing, you can choose the license that you want. So if you have, I think this is my favorite example, is no license, then nobody can do anything with your work. You have not given any permission for anybody to use your work. If you want to understand more about licensing, you can look up. And we don't give any, we are not allowed to give any recommendations on what license you should use. We can say that the most open licenses to share data are the CC1 Universal and CC4 by attribution international, but that is also like it means you need to give credit to whose work you're using. So it's basically just you need to reference them in some manner. So, but yeah, if you choose no license, then yeah, nothing can be done with the content without the license holder's consent. So anything on the OSF that doesn't have a license associated with it is assumed to be no license, and you're not allowed to use that content. So just because it's public doesn't mean you're allowed to use any content that is stored in that project. Um, Sorry to end so early. Like I said, I haven't given this in once. Um, and yeah, so it looks like we have a lot of people who would be interested in more training. Um, so any other questions before I end this? Oh, I do want to mention, and I think it's the final slide, maybe. If you need help, we have links to all of the webinars and events. We also have our OSF Support Center right here, which I went to multiple times, which gives you a lot of the technical advice. There is also some guidance, such as for preprints, um, getting permission from all your authors to share the preprint, determining your author ordership, how you're going to license your content, um, files, abstracts, all of the things. So we do have a little bit of guidance for like preparing it, but mostly this is related to the technical aspects of doing putting a preprint on the OSF. Okay, no other questions, I think. Sorry, I've lost the chat. Oh wait, no, I see it there. Yeah, I think we're working on getting yeah, the link to the webinars is here. Oh gosh. No, I don't. Go back. Yeah, we have links to other webinars on the COS page. Somebody drop that link. Yeah. So yeah, so we do these 101 webinars every month. So feel free to come back in February to see somebody who's done this a little bit more frequently than I have. But it's similar things where you create projects, we show how you have an account, um, how you start a registration, how you start a preprint. And then on our support, we do have recordings of older webinars. Unfortunately, a lot of these videos are with the old interface. We updated our interface in October of this year, and we have not yet gotten around to being able to update all of the videos as of yet. Okay, well, thank you for joining. I hope everyone has a great week, and see you on the OSF.